So let's try and make sense of India's strategic messaging here. Joining me on this India First special, Vice Admiral Shekhar, former Flag Officer Commanding-in-Chief of the Western Naval Command. Also with me is my colleague Shiv Arur, one of India's finest voices on matters military. And Shiv, I want to begin by asking you, first such exercise by INS Vikrant and Vikramaditya operating together. What concepts are being validated? Explain India's power projection here.
Well, Gaurav, operating both the aircraft carriers at the same time, as part of multi-carrier operations, sends out a very, very significant message. The Indian Navy is the preeminent force in the Indian Ocean region. This is the Indian Navy's area of responsibility. But there can be no mistaking the fact that such power projection and muscle flexing, one of the intended recipients is, of course, China. Apart from the fact that China has been trying to assert itself in the Indian Ocean, the fact that India has two very, very high quality aircraft carriers operational at the same time, operating together, is also a bit of a, cocking a snook at China, if one can look at it that way. Remember, China has two operational aircraft carriers as well, but they are nowhere near the same kind of quality. And this isn't just something that the Indian Navy or India thinks. This is a global reputation that China has, that it's going to take them a decade or more to, master the capability of operating an aircraft carrier far from shore. They've got two operational, they've got a couple more, being built, but they still don't have that, the kind of experience and the kind of capability that the Indian Navy has built up over many, many years. So, in one sense, when it comes to flexing, power projection, messaging, I think the exercise at sea is something that has irked China a great deal. It's one of the reasons why you're seeing a lot of propaganda in the other spheres, including Galwan, etc. But this particular operation is one to be very proud of. Remember that the INS Vikrant is an indigenous aircraft carrier. It was delivered to the Indian Navy just under a year ago. It's going to turn 1 in September. And for that ship to be almost fully operationally ready, and for the Indian Navy to have the confidence to deploy it in a complex exercise with large carrier battle groups in the Arabian Sea is a great testament to the Indian Navy's capability and indigenous shipbuilding.
Oh, absolutely. Stay with me, Shiv. Admiral Sinha, China has two aircraft carriers, Lining and Shandong, and is building a third, Fujian, close to, I think, 80,000 tons displacement. How would China be looking at two carrier battle groups exercising together? How would China be looking at this Indian Navy exercise?
Well, Gaurav, thank you for getting me on your program. It's always a pleasure. What we have to understand, that India has been operating aircraft carriers since 1960.
Yes.
And operating aircraft carrier is not only the flying part and its operational sort of usage of the aircraft and helicopters, but it is also the concept of operation which is important. Where do you deploy the aircraft carrier? And now that we have two carrier groups, battle groups, as Shiv mentioned, we have always said right from 60s, if you pick up the Indian Navy's maritime strategy book, not often supported by the government, but Navy always had this, that we need two operational aircraft carriers, one for the eastern seaboard and one for the western seaboard. Today we have realized that we have two aircraft carrier. We did operate two aircraft carrier for a little while in 1989 when Vikrant and Virat both were operational. And here we have many more ships. So carrier battle group is given a task. It is not only flying task. It is given a task to go destroy so-and-so area, sanitize so-and-so area, make sure that nobody comes in either from the air or on the surface or underwater. So this is testing of that capability of handling a complex exercise by the commanders who are at sea. The fleet commander, the Western Naval Command Commander-in-Chief, as to do they have the ability to plan such a massive exercise, and do they have the ability to execute it. So that must be understood as to what is the nuance. And I would think that, our adversary is a long way off from this, because they still haven't got their hand onto the night flying part of it from the deck. Some of them have done it, but not enough pilots. Whereas every pilot on MiG-29K on both carriers, they are both day and night fully operational people.
Okay.
So that is one. Second aspect is, this is the first time that we got the MH-90 Romeo,
Yes.
the ASW helicopters which we have bought from US, and they are the state-of-the-art niche technology, top-of-the-line ASW helicopter, which we needed very badly. So now when you say that you got 2 CBG, what does it mean? That I can effectively have sea control and sea denial at the choke points on both ends of the globe.